Part 2, Emotional Intelligence. The power of emotional intelligence. Understanding and managing your emotions effectively is a profound aspect of personal development. Emotional intelligence empowers you to navigate not only your emotions, but also the emotions of those around you in a healthy and masterful way. Emotional intelligence in daily life. Imagine this. In your daily life, you encounter challenges and interactions that require emotional awareness and management. Without emotional intelligence, you may find yourself reacting impulsively or withdrawing from situations. This can lead to strained relationships and hinder your ability to face life's complexities. Navigating your emotions. With emotional intelligence, we unlock the ability to understand and manage our emotions effectively. We recognize when stress, anger, or fear arises and choose a response rather than reacting impulsively. This self-awareness allows us to steer through life's ups and downs with grace. Navigating others' emotions. Equally significant to our capacity to understand and empathize with the emotions of others, this skill empowers us to build deeper connections, provide support when needed, and foster healthier relationships. It's the art of truly listening and connecting on a profound emotional level. Now, when it comes to navigating emotions, whether ours or others, it is something that I like to metaphorically explain through the visual of surfing waves in the ocean. When you don't know how to navigate your own emotions or be aware of others' emotions so that you can better be equipped and ready to navigate theirs, it looks like a person first learning how to surf. Nothing wrong with beginning and learning how to surf, right? Because this is what we're doing here. We're learning how to cultivate the practices that allow us to be masterful of surfing through life's complexity, because life is filled of ups and downs. But the intention of this course is to place you in the position in your mind state that no matter what ups and downs come, you're able to surf and navigate yourself through them like a true professional surfer. Because when we begin, we try one wave and we fall, and we don't even know how to stand on the board yet. So first we have to learn how to stand on the board in the water, maybe in a location in the ocean where it's not so much waves, right? Because you have to get comfortable with the board first. And once we get comfortable with the board, we also have to remember that we have to get comfortable with the environment, the temperature of the water, the winds, if there's people in the way, if there's any animals swimming in the area. All these things play a significant role for the end result of how we become professional surfers. So before we can become those professional surfers within the ocean, navigating those waves, we have to start from the basics, which is what we're doing now. We have to become aware first of what is it that we are truly navigating through. What is it that we are truly dealing with, whether it's our emotions or others' emotions, whether it's our thoughts or other thoughts, whether it's the way we choose to see the world and the way we choose to react or respond to it, right? Where am I placing myself currently so that I can know what I need to work on once I get inventory of my current actions, of my current behaviors, of my current thoughts, of my current emotional states, so that by me becoming aware, I can navigate them, rearrange them, reframe them, transfer them, reposition them. All of these things we need to do, but first we need to know what we're doing that to, because we can't go to the next level of being conscious creator of our reality and surfing through the paradigms that we wish to experience by simple intention if we can't navigate through the basic needs of what is it that we need to cultivate. So on level 1, we are cultivating the right tools and practices and the mindsets and the momentum so that it becomes second nature to us. Just like an individual that wants to become a professional surfer of those waves that can be unpredictable, that can be really high and really low, can be cold, can crash us down. But the goal is to go fearlessly into that wave, coursing through it, navigating through it, and becoming the surfers that we envision ourselves to be. That no matter if we finished completely the surf of that wave, or we finish halfway, or we never even get started, we're always just getting back up on the board and trying it again, because we are building the momentum and the mindset of winners. Winners who are self-mastered in themselves, who believe in themselves, who trust themselves, because winners don't give up on themselves. And by not giving up on yourself, you're already stepping into the winner mindset, because you're not going to. Because once you start the journey, you are already focused in it. And I want you to keep this momentum, this motivation, this belief in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, you cannot expect anyone outside of you to believe in you. Because people outside of you can only see what you see in yourself, you see. So we have to learn how to navigate the course to cultivate what is it that we need to learn to get comfortable with, so that we can step into the mastery of surfing those waves and navigating through all the courses of life. Practices for developing emotional intelligence. The first step we have here is self-reflection. Like I said, this is always more than likely going to be the first. This first one is always going to be likely to be the first one in any process. But this one's slightly different because, just like I mentioned before with the surfer in the beginning stages, self-reflection is going to allow us to explore our internal landscape. So it says here, begin by exploring your own emotional landscape. Reflect on past experiences and emotional patterns. What emotions tend to surface in challenging situations, and how do you typically react? You see, when the surfer is beginning to learn how to surf, they are getting comfortable with the board, in the environment, in the places where they're going to learn how to surf. So they have to get familiar with that environment. They have to know where the winds are blowing more intensely based on where they are in the position where they stand. They have to see if there's any rocks that are causing the waves to move a certain way, so they know if they want to stand closer or further away from that. Obviously further, because they don't want to crash into the rocks if a wave does come. So all of these things allows us to become aware of our surroundings, of our landscaping, and how we react. And just like the ocean is unpredictable in its being, if we start to pick up on the patterns, like the waves, that we might pick up on the patterns of how the waves may go and what season to go best and how many people there might be at certain hours of the day, so you learn to go during the morning hours because there'll be less people and so on, right? You're picking up on the patterns based on your observation, and observation that has to first start through the self-reflection or the reflecting of what is happening within you when you are experiencing something. So when you experience a situation that may trigger you, instead of reacting impulsively or defensively or through assumption, it is a perfect opportunity to step back and reflect. Here comes that trigger again. Wait, what? Why do I feel like this right now? Oh, they mentioned this. Yeah, this thing that they mentioned kind of triggers me. Why does that trigger me though? You start processing, you start feeling the sensations in your body. And because you're reflecting, remember, we don't want to overthink neither, because overthinking can also create us to be stuck in our heads. We want to go with the intention when we self-reflect that we are exploring things about ourselves that we didn't know before. So make it exciting. Let me go ahead and explore aspects of myself that I don't know. So when you hear yourself repeating something that you normally repeat, you know you're not exploring, you're just hearing the narrative and the program that's been playing in the background. So you're becoming aware of what's that. But when you are self-reflecting, you're trying to explore the new landscape that you have yet to discover, because you don't normally go on that side within your psyche, because you've been rolling in the same circle for God knows how long, saying the same thing to yourself and reacting the same way. But you want to explore the landscape that you don't normally visit, so that in that area you find different meanings and reasons and beliefs that you've been giving yourself, which might be the root cause of why you might be triggered in certain situations, why you might act a certain way or react in ways that you would rather not, right? Because let's say your intention is to remain poised and collective and graceful throughout any moment that you do feel triggered. You already know that by placing that intention, you're not going to react to anything that might trigger you, because as soon as that trigger takes place, it's going to activate the intention of what you just said to yourself. But you have to engrave that within yourself, which is what we're going to do later on. But for right now, I need you to focus on how we want to self-reflect when we are trying to rediscover certain aspects about ourselves that we may not even know yet. And it is through the process of exploring these landscapes and patterns within ourselves that we discover the why behind why we act a certain way and why we tend to react the way we choose at that moment. Bringing me into the next practice of mindfulness. Incorporate mindfulness practice into your daily life. Cultivate a habit of observing your emotions without judgment. This practice enhances your self-awareness and emotional regulation. So when we go into that self-reflection with the curiosity of exploring, we're going into a mindset of being mindful of what's occurring. Therefore, no longer being the participant that acts on the impulses of these emotional states, but rather playing the observer of them by stepping out of that emotional state and allowing ourselves to reflect. And when we allow ourselves to reflect as we observe ourselves, it's less likely that we are judging ourselves, but in fact we are searching for those aspects of ourselves that make us react or be the way we are. And when we have an idea of those patterns, and when we get a sense of what's occurring, we become more self-aware. Therefore, we become more self-regulated. We are no longer in reaction mode or defense mode or trigger. We are just simply allowing things to be what they are, because now we are understanding that these moments that are triggering us or making us react are actually happening for us and not to us. And what do I mean by this? As I always say, life is happening for you and not to you, in the sense that in order for you to become aware of the unaware or conscious of the unconscious, it needs to be resurfaced. It needs to be experienced. Because without those experiences, you won't have the opportunity to observe the patterns that you are living by, to observe the programming that's running, to observe the emotional triggers that are being cultivated when this very thing occurs. So when you start perceiving life like it's something that is happening for you, so that you can become aware of these aspects of you, so that in that process of becoming aware, you are mastering yourself, you allow yourself to just experience without the judgment. bringing us into our third practice of empathy and active listening. When engaging with others, practice empathy and active listening. Truly connect with their emotions and seek to understand their perspective, fostering deeper, more meaningful relationships. Now, as I said, because life is happening for you and not to you, you start to quickly realize that the people you are experiencing are coming veiled in the lesson that they bring. What does that mean? The people you are experiencing are aligning into your experience because there's a form of resonance in the energy frequency that you both are playing out at that very moment in time. It doesn't have to be long term. It could be a simple day of an experience with someone or a whole lifetime of someone. There's no time into what that looks like and what that might be with you and the individual. We just have to learn not to be attached to what we think that individual should do, be, and have, and whatever expectations we want to add to that. Remove all that judgment, remove all those expectations, and just be in that present moment where you can truly cultivate the ability to empathize and actively listen to what that individual is here to give you, the message, the action, the behavior, because there's always something that they are teaching you, because they're coming veiled in the lesson that they bring. And because life is happening for you and not to you, and you're experiencing yourself through the expression of the projections of yourself, your inner world and the external world, more than likely they're highlighting or saying something that you internally, whether consciously or unconsciously, are telling yourself. And sometimes if we miss it ourselves through the self-reflection practices or the mindfulness, right, we might miss a few things because it's not an easy process. And it takes for us not to be in denial of all that we truly are, because the biggest factor of this practice in particular is that most people, unfortunately, are in denial of all that they can truly be because they don't want to accept it. They don't even want to think of themselves being a way that they can possibly be, because me? Never, right? The funny part is that we are all human, and put under certain circumstances, we all might react or not act in certain ways. And it's not until we are placed in the position to have the opportunity to understand that or experience that or know that about ourselves is that we discover that about ourselves. So when you see that others are really quick to judge others, it's more than likely they are judging themselves, which is why they fear the judgment of others, because they have been doing it to themselves so much that they already know that's going to come with the territory, because that's the paradigm that they are having within themselves. So when, let's say, for example, you are allowing yourself to experience the experience of your life, and you come across someone that you, let's say, for example, you met when you were learning how to surf, and this person out of nowhere says the very thing that you were saying to yourself as you were learning how to surf, right? But they say it out loud. So now, because it's coming from someone else that you believe is someone else, but it's really you and another individual being projected externally, reflecting back to yourself, you get offended. You say, how dare you criticize me like that? Right? If they say, hey, you should have stood a little longer, I bet you can't do that, or whatever it might be. Maybe it's a criticism, maybe it's a judgment that they might say to you. And because it's coming from someone that you quote unquote don't know, how dare you speak to me that way, or how dare you criticize me? And you might not even say it to them, but you might think it. You might say, oh yeah, I'll try my best, or yeah, it's my first time. You'll try to justify their criticism, instead of looking at them and saying, hey, I don't appreciate you saying that. But then you have to think, I don't appreciate them saying that, but am I saying that to myself? Am I not allowing myself to go through the journey and learn through the courses and the practices that would be necessary before I can master it? Because only practice makes mastery. So am I criticizing myself through this process? That I align myself with the individual that is now expressing back to me what I was just telling myself as I was in the water, telling myself that I should do this better and I'm never going to get it. and here I have this person reflecting that back to me. So the irony is pretty funny. When we start to reflect, we start to get in the practice of reflecting, and we quickly realize what's coming from an experience that's just happening, or what's coming from our inner dialogue based on what we're telling ourselves. And when we realize that, we have to question, okay, I appreciate this experience because it brought into my awareness that I myself have been criticizing myself, and I need to work on that. Maybe I need to work on what's the belief system I have behind that root cause of why I even criticize myself. Why am I expecting so much from myself and not having enough compassion to understand that, just like everyone else, I'm going through the courses that are necessary so that I can become a professional surfer, right? So this is why self-compassion, self-forgiveness is so essential in this course, because you need to be kind to yourself if you want to get through it. You need to learn how to speak to yourself with encouragement and empowerment. You need to start looking at yourself as if you yourself were parenting yourself. And with that perspective, you need to ask yourself, what would make me feel supported right now? What would make me feel loved? What would be the right words for me to hear right now to encourage me to do what I want to do, or to keep pushing forward, or to believe in myself, or to love myself? What is it, the right words that I need to hear? And start telling yourself those things. And you quickly start to realize that once you start doing that, then now you have other people telling you the same thing. And then all you have to say there is, oh, thank you. Yeah, I was thinking that myself too. But the irony is that you're only experiencing yourself through the experience of another. So when you start to realize this truth, the way you look at others is going to be completely different. You start seeing yourself through others. You start seeing the you in them. You start seeing how, if you yourself were to go through that experience, you yourself might end up to be that way too. So you have this love of compassion towards them. It doesn't mean enabling. It doesn't mean tolerance of toxic behavior. It doesn't mean even allowing them in your life, but just an awareness of the observation that you have picked up. Bringing us into our next segment of benefits of emotional intelligence. So for the first benefit we have is self-awareness. Emotional intelligence is a mirror that reflects our inner world. It enhances self-awareness, enabling us to understand our emotional triggers and patterns, a fundamental aspect of self-mastery, which is basically what I just explained to you. The next one is healthier relationships. Nurturing emotional intelligence is a key to healthier, more profound relationships. You'll communicate with empathy, resolve conflicts effectively, and build lasting relationships. Because now when we start to see relationships as another aspect of us, as the me in you is reflecting back to me, the me that I need to see, you start to talk to them how you would need to be spoken to, rather than how your emotional state or your triggers or your impulsiveness wants to react, because the emotions might be too intense and they might get too uncomfortable. But they're only there to make you aware that there is still something there you need to work on and heal and process and let go and release. Because once that process and healing and release occurs, those experiences that trigger that very thing will cease to exist, because you are no longer in vibrational alignment to it. And when you no longer become in vibrational alignment to that experience, you will stop having it, because it's no longer needed to have. And if it was to occur, it will no longer trigger you the same way it used to, because you have now healed that aspect within you. So for the third one, we have, once again, it's another element of personal growth, as embracing emotional intelligence is a stepping stone to personal growth and self-mastery. We become the masters of our emotions rather than their captive. So because we are becoming aware that life is happening for us and not to us, we become aware that what we experience is only a projection of what's happening internally. We become aware that if it is triggering me and making me react in a negative way, it's only something that I need to become aware of, so that I can work on, so that I can process, so that I can heal, so that in that process I can release and let go of it, so that I can neutralize that emotional state, because emotions are indeed energy in motion. So when we start to realize that all emotions are energy in motion, and these emotions that are running through our system are keeping us at a certain energetic frequency, it is keeping us stuck in the channel that are going to experience more of that emotion, because that is the emotion that we are giving emotional charge to based on the attention and focus. And how do we do this? Well, first of all, let's say you experience something that triggers you. What do? You react to it. You get triggered. You get offended. You might walk away. You might call names. You might overreact, because you didn't take the opportunity that you were being given to reflect on what was occurring, to ask yourself the right questions and say, why is this triggering me, rather than reacting. It's funny, sometimes with certain triggers, we tend to react before we even know what's going on, because the reaction comes before the process of thoughts comes along. That's how reactive we can be to certain things, and these are the things that we need to work on to become any form of master of anything. Because if we can't sit back and actually observe the landscape, the situation from all point of views, by gaining the awareness through the observation and empathy of others as well, then we're always going to be reactive to triggers. And how are we growing and maturing in that? We won't. We'll just stay stuck in the loop of having to experience that very same thing over and over and over again, until we get to the point where it no longer creates an emotional charge within us, where we have neutralized that emotional state by no longer invalidating it. And what do I mean by this? In order for us to no longer have an emotional charge to something, we need to remove any point of assumption or invalidation of what we believe is right or wrong of it. It just is an experience that we may prefer or may not. But whether it's right or wrong is very subjective, depending on the individual and the situation. Because sometimes we are perceiving our experiences from a wounded place, therefore a distorted perception of the experience. Because the more wounded we are, the more distorted our perception of reality becomes. And if our perception is distorted, and we are always seeing the ugly in all situations, then where are we living? Wouldn't that be considered hell in itself? But when you can neutralize it and no longer react or respond or be in completely indifference of it, then you become masterful over that emotional state, over that belief system, over that wound, over that trauma, over that conditioning, right? That restricted you in the looping of that very experience. Because I guarantee you, things that triggered you have experienced it enough to know that it is something you need to work on. But now that we are reframing the way we perceive it by learning how to perceive it from what am I learning from this experience, you look at it differently. You react differently. You respond with wisdom rather than reacting by emotions. Because a person that can control your emotions can control you as well. And if someone outside of you can control your emotions, then you cannot be self-mastered. Because a person who's self-mastered is in complete control of their emotional state. And this is not an easy task, and I understand this, which is why we are going step by step, phase by phase, stage by stage, level by level, because it is a journey, because it is a process. But how liberating and rewarding would it be to the point that nothing takes you off course, nothing takes you out of your element, out of your essence, out of your character, because you know who you are, you know what's true to you, and it doesn't matter what anything outside of you does or says. If you're not saying it to yourself, I promise you, you're not going to experience it. People can be talking behind your back, but I guarantee you, they won't say it to your face. In fact, I promise you that. They won't say it to your face. Because if you're not judging and criticizing yourself, it's nearly impossible for that experience to come about. And the only ones that do come about are the ones that you are self-criticizing and judging yourself about. And when you do experience that, because you are in the momentum and the experience of self-mastery, you know that, oh, this is the opportunity right here and now to completely annihilate this trigger. Gamify your experience if you have to. But all you have to do is learn how to make sure you take advantage of every single opportunity that life is giving you to overcome those aspects of you, to override those beliefs, and to transcend those emotional states that have captivated you to be stagnant, to be stuck, and limited in your full potential. Bringing me into the conclusion, as in part 2 of nurturing our emotions and relationships, we delve into the vital domain of emotional intelligence. This skill empowers us to understand and manage our emotions effectively, steering us towards self-awareness, healthier relationships, and personal growth. It's the cornerstone for navigating our emotional world and the emotions of those around us in a healthy and masterful way. With emotional intelligence, you're better equipped for the journey of self-mastery and personal development.